Now we'll check out a way we can change the pivot of our control objects and animate that change if we ever need to. So this feature that we're about to add to our flashlight is going to allow us to either switch our pivot pretty much wherever we like on the flashlight. So that's typically going to be right at the end or the center or even the front of the flashlight if the character were ever to hold the flashlight at that point. So this is going to be pretty cool. Let's go ahead and create a locator for this. Go ahead and create a locator. Once the locator has been made, we go to our flashlight control, show its LRA, and just snap that flashlight right to the center. That's going to be our starting point, we can say. So let's go ahead and just vert snap the locator there. Great. Once that's been done, we can go back to our control and turn off its LRA. Now with the locator selected, what I like to do is shrink this as well so it's not so large. Really don't want to have it seen. Okay, we just want it to control our pivot. So we can shrink that, and we can. What we also want to do is make sure we leave its values untouched as far as freezing transformation, so everything will work right. So we'll just leave it as is, and we'll give it a name. We'll call this log, and that's going to be our flashlight. So we'll put our abbreviation, and then piv for pivot, so we know exactly what this locator does. Great. We're also going to want it to follow along with our flashlight. So with the locator selected first, we select our control object and hit P. So wherever that flashlight goes, that object is going to follow. Okay, that pivot changer is going to follow. Alright, so how do we set it up so that it will control our pivot? Well, this is going to be done via our connection editor. What we want to do is connect the translation of this locator to the rotate pivot of our flashlight. So watch what happens when we do that. We'll select our locator, we'll go to our connection editor. And remember, that's going to be connecting our translate of this locator to the rotate pivot of our flashlight control. So now we select our flashlight control, go to reload, and this time we want to show our non-keyable. Okay, we want to scroll down until we get to, here it is, our rotate pivot. So with the translate selected on the locator, we select our rotate pivot for it to control it. Now, let's see what this gives us. Okay, if we were to select our flashlight and move it around, oh, everything looks the same. What type of trickery is this? Okay, but watch what happens when we select our locator and move it. Notice now when we select our control, notice where the pivot is. It's right where that locator is. And notice if we were to do an animation where it's swinging from the belt, we can easily go ahead and do that. This is really awesome. And, of course, if we take the locator again, move it, select our control object, where is it now? Right at the front of the flashlight. Wonderful. So we can have our character hold the flashlight wherever that we like, and once we set up the hand, it's going to be connected right to wherever the locator is going to be. And notice because of it being parented right to control, which we want it to be, it's going to follow, again, just the way we like it to. Great. So now with this set up, of course we need to set up switches so that it will follow appropriately. So let's go ahead and do that. With our control selected, we go up to modify, we go to add attribute. Okay, we can make a displayable name. We can call this piv position. Okay, or just shorten that name. Once we have it labeled, we can go ahead and add it. So we have our piv position, and now we'll make an enum so we can switch wherever we like our locator or our pivot controller to be. So here we can call this pivot at, and then for the first, we can call that middle, so that'll be at our default spot. Hit enter. The next we can call top. Hit enter. Go one blank line underneath and call that low. Hit enter. We hit OK, and there it is. So we have middle, top, and low. So how do we now set this up so that it will follow? Simple. We use a set driven key. So we'll now select our locator, go to our set driven key window. It should be loaded up right where our driven side is. And we'll select this translate Y to be driven by our attribute. So now we'll select our control, go to our, or load it up as our driver and select our pivot at. Okay, so right now it's set to pivot at middle, so we could just set a key. Great. But now what if we wanted it to be pivoted at the top? We select the top, go to our pivot, and move this flashlight up. What we can also do, just so that if we were to ever, let's say, accidentally shift our locator in another translation spot, we can actually go to keying. Let's go back to the middle. We could actually just go ahead and key all of the translates, just so that it'll be locked right at the top. So again, we could just say key selected. Go ahead and switch this now to top. Go to our flashlight pivot, move that up, okay, and position it where it needs to be, and that should be fine, right where it's at. Maybe bringing it down a little bit more. Okay, so once that's there, key selected. Now, let's go ahead and do our last. That's at low. We go back to the locator, bring it down, and we probably want that, let's say, around the head of the flashlight. Okay, you could even put it right here if you like, right before the head, but we can, since it's at the low spot there, we'll just put it at the head of the flashlight, and key selected. So what do we get? Now if we select our control, right now it's set to low, and notice everything is moving the way we like. What if it was at the top? What are we going to get? Oh, nice, a nice swinging flashlight. Okay, how about the middle? Of course, that goes right back to our default spot. So that is a look at how we can change the pivot of our control objects. Of course, this doesn't only apply to this object. It could apply to a lot of other objects in your scene. You could even get pretty interesting results if your character ever needed to do different type of actions in the upper body. Of course, you can switch the pivot wherever you like and allow that the animation of that action to be much easier. Well, again, that finishes this lesson. And now our last task is to make sure that our arm is going to follow this flashlight before we complete the setup of our flashlight. So that's going to be our next task, and we'll work on that in the next lesson to finish the setup of our flashlight.